My name is Eric Harper. I'm here on the committee representing the Industrial Internet Consortium and ABB. And one of the things that we see today is the world is full of consumer and industrial IoT, connecting people, processes, data, and assets. What is happening in the IT world, starting with deploying and connecting advanced sensors such as mobile phones, is shifting from technology to understanding the value proposition and the business return on investment. Nicola Villa, he spent a lot of time in his career thinking about these concerns, and this is where he started to develop his IoT vision. Nicola became the managing director at Cisco's Internet Business Solutions Group, focused on the public sector, presenting at international conferences. He also co-founded the City Protocol Society here in Barcelona, bringing together communities, companies, academia to accelerate sustainable transformation. So now Nicola is executive partner and Internet of Things leader in Europe for IBM Global Business Services. And today he will share his perspective on the business of things and how to make use of the technology. Please join me in welcoming Nicola Villa.
Thank you, Eric. I lost quite a bit of hair, by the way, but thinking about all these things that you said. Good morning. What a great event. What a great city. And what a great time to be working on IoT. Many of the people that preceded me on the stage spoke a lot about data, about the number of devices becoming connected, the number of data being produced, the economic value of IoT, and all of that. I'd like to draw your attention instead on a couple of fundamental elements, trends, which are happening today. The first trend is that the world is literally being rewritten in code. We're able, therefore, to drive more and more a one-to-one correlation between the physical environment and the digital environment. The second trend to me is the fact that IoT is shifting from being a technology conversation happening in the IT rooms into becoming a boardroom discussion. And this is happening because of a number of revolutions. There's a technology revolution, and there's a services model revolution. And if you look at the first one, the technology revolution, which you see on the left over here, it is really about a convergence of a number of technology shifts and changes and market transitions. First of all, broadband. Connectivity has become broad. Broadband is becoming a reality. Our cities have been becoming connected. Barcelona, for example, and the Catalan government have been investing on policy and regulatory frameworks for 10 years and basically brought up the broadband connectivity and quality across the entire region. And that has happened pretty much around the world. The second revolution has been happening at the sensors level. So sensors are being embedded in every element of the built environment in which we live. But also they're becoming much more energy efficient, context aware, and cheap. The third revolution which is taking place in the technology side is the analytics revolution. So we are able to carve out insights and actions out of the enormous amount of data by creating better and better analytics and basically moving from descriptive analytics, which is the standard of the past, into cognitive. And we speak about this a bit more later on today. All these insights produced by the analytics are now being distributed and then accessed through a very flexible IT consumption model, which is cloud computing. And mobile, the hundreds of millions of devices allow us today to access this information anywhere and anytime. So the convergence of those 5 trends have a profound change on the way IoT is transforming entire industries. And we see a shift happen really in the last 4 or 5 years between IoT being focused on instrumenting devices and driving operational efficiencies, which is still a big focus, into IoT becoming the opportunity to create data and monetize data in ways others than the ones that the data were produced originally. So we see organizations, and we'll talk about a couple of them today, moving into entire new markets, leveraging on IoT platforms, and basically creating additional revenues. So in order to validate the hypothesis, we ran a research this year. We had about 2,500 IBM clients, executives, practitioners in the public and the private sector, try to understand basically what the latest status on IoT strategy and development was going to be. And we came across 4 major data points, which to me are quite significant. Still 75% of the organizations that we're working with are in their early stage of development when it comes to IoT. They're thinking about, what problems can I try to solve through the technology that I'm trying to implement. Yet, more than half plan to invest a sensible amount of money into this space. So they're basically starting to get investments right. Expectations are still somehow high. Jonathan Ballon yesterday spoke about the IoT hype, right? And 65% of the clients that we service came back and say, yeah, we invest in here, but we're really quite uncertain about the ROI. And therefore, again, the conversation is changing from what am I going to do with my devices into what problem am I trying to solve, what new value am I trying to drive, what use cases do I need to drive the value, and then we start mapping this into platforms, technologies, and programs. When you look at the subset of those clients which are becoming quite effective and successful in the IoT economy, there's a number of trends, and I picked 4, which come out consistently in those organizations. First of all, those organizations are starting to turn their focus from passive things into active agents. They use sensors and devices as actuators, and they're basically able to drive decisions out of the insight they create, and therefore some actions. Second, the way technology and IoT technology is being consumed is from the project of the past, which were large 18-month infrastructure projects, where you, by the way, will use only 20% of the functionality that you created, into pay-per-use. Some of my American colleagues call it pay by the drink, right? So you only pay for what you drink. Here, you only pay for what you consume from a cloud perspective. And therefore, the focus shifts from CapEx, capital expenses, into OpEx. As Eric said, I've been spending quite a bit of time in my career in the smart cities area. And some visionary cities are starting to use the OpEx to drive IoT programs versus the CapEx, and therefore becoming able to move beyond pilots. So another issue that we had in the IoT space is lots of pilots and very few routes. So the economic model basically is changing, and the platform-based consumption model, which was also presented before today, is driving that acceleration. And last, and perhaps most importantly, the shift takes place from selling products or deploying assets into selling services to software updates that allow many of the clients that we're working with to generate subscription-based recurring revenues on top of the asset. An interesting example in this space is Kone. Kone is one of the world leaders in the production of escalators and elevators. And Kone has been partnering with IBM for about 12 months in their digital transformation journey. So when we started to work with them on the journey, we thought about how do we move and help you move from selling assets, they got about 1 million assets around the world, into starting to think about services, guaranteeing uptime, and therefore developing predictive maintenance and quality type of solutions, which is what they did. But during their work, we started to think about how do we, again, monetize the data that we use to send out the people in time before the asset fails, in ways other than the one for which the data was originally created. And they started to think about redesigning the strategy and moving from an asset company into a company that is dedicated to people flow. That is their new vision. They set up a business unit called People Flow Enablement. They basically starting not only to deploy the assets, but is also starting to sell insights about the movement of people into specific areas, malls, airports, build environmental locations and offices, and are starting to bring together their data on a platform approach with other data So IBM is bringing quite a bit of Watson knowledge and capabilities and data. We're bringing the Water Company data, which we own and we operate. So the idea of Kona is basically to move into an entire new market, and Kona is having this conversation at the boardroom level. So it is a strategic decision that the customer and the client has taken to basically leverage on the existing infrastructure, create a platform approach, and move into entire new markets. So what is the next step from this? In our opinion, the next steps come from the cognitive revolution, which is really about the machine not only to be able to, or being able to understand the data, the context, understand voice, video, and text, but also to reason, to create hypotheses on specific decision that needs to be taken based on a number of data and events taking place, but also to learn. And when the machine and when the system start to learn, they start to adapt to what the environment is. They start to interact with the environment and interact with people in a completely different way. They allow people to go through a completely different experience when interacting with the machine. And that's, again, another shift that we see today, which is really moving from machine to machine, into machine to people, into people to people. And we've got an example that I'd like to show you, a video, which should be rolled out, on how cognitive and IoT comes together. Please roll the video.
Hello, my name is Ali, and I'm making history.
This is a huge day in automotive history. Not only is it the day where Ford Motor Company was incorporated June 16, 1903, but also it's the day where we got people comfortable with the idea of riding around in a completely self-driving vehicle. I'm Jay Rogers, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Local Motors.
I am the first cognitively enabled vehicle. I seat 12 passengers. And you can ask me anything.
Ollie, why don't you say hello?
Hi everyone, my name is Ali. I'm a self-driving vehicle powered by IBM Watson technology. I can help people get around National Harbor.
Ollie, I'm hungry. Where can I get some food?
National Harbor has some great seafood. Would you like that?
That sounds great. What's good?
Well, try the Crab Cake Cafe.
All right, I'll go there for dinner.
Okay, but don't forget your umbrella. There is a severe thunderstorm warning tonight.
The sensor set on this vehicle allows us to be able to feed data to Watson and feed data back to Ollie to make life more enjoyable. Thanks, Ollie.
By the way, I like your bow tie.
Ollie was here last year at the conference as a prototype. And today is basically driving on streets in Washington, D.C. Local Motor, which is a startup, is a grown-up startup who's working on, is now coming into Europe, into places like Berlin and Copenhagen. And this speaks to me about the speed to which development is taking place. What was a prototype and a bit of an idea last year is already starting to drive on the streets today. The other interesting piece to me about Ollie is about bringing together a number of factors. First of all, it's about 3D printing. All is being 3D printed. And it is really focused on bringing manufacturing back into our cities. Right? So in the Western world is one of the major topics, when we talk to governments about how do we create jobs and economic development, and how do we bring all this back into our cities. It is also about an open ecosystem environment. Local Motors is partnering with IBM and a number of other startups in bringing together a number of capabilities across the platform. It is also about the government in this space acting as a living lab. The Washington, D.C. city government basically decided to provide their infrastructure, their road infrastructure in this case, as the place in which Ollie can drive and can basically learn how to behave and interact with the environment. So from an IBM perspective, how are we helping make this all happen? And we are bringing together a number of capabilities in 4 major areas into what we call a Watson IoT platform, which is our main way to go to market to support our client success. 4 major elements are embedded into the platform. First of all, a connect element, which is about connecting and managing devices at the large scale in a number of locations. Second is information management, which is basically about managing the data, both in a centralized way on the cloud but also in the distributed data architecture. It is also then about driving our clients' transition from descriptive analytics into prescriptive, predictive, edge analytics, and cognitive. So we help our clients drive through the entire journey and consume those analytics as a service with a cloud-based model. And then we are basically securing the entire environment and focusing on risk management by making large investment in blockchain. So we see blockchain as one of the major enablers for a risk perspective, a risk management point of view. And we also see as the way to redesign entire value chain. So blockchain is today to the value chain what the ERP has been to the enterprise 20 years ago. And we're quite focused in investing there. We also deliver all these services wrapped into a Bluemix environment, which is a cloud-based environment in which we're able to ingest very quickly large amounts of data in a public, hybrid, or private environment, but also to open APIs to be able to allow a number of clients and developers to create rapid prototype application and services in an agile manner. We have today 430 developers that are working on Bluemix, creating services and value on top of it. And this speaks a bit about the transition IBM has been going through in the last few years into an open ecosystem platform player, which is enabling value innovation happening on top of what we provide as a service. Let's look into another example now on how we are starting to partner with a few of our clients, which are becoming our partners, in a very specific way. So please roll the next video.
Today, we're going to change the game here at ISS HQ in Copenhagen. We're going to make the building come alive. This will give ISS the edge in the market, make them more competitive, provide them with a better customer and employee experience. We're going to connect the unconnected to our Watson IoT cloud platform and make it cognitive. Let's show you how.
We have 2,000 key accounts with more than 25,000 buildings, touching more than 1 million people every day. Our aim is to drive greater value for our clients by creating intuitive service solutions to get more efficient workplaces with happier and engaged end users.
This is actually a sandbox where we test all the new technologies and see how it works. We are around 130 people here in the building, but a lot of them are constantly traveling. So the chef here, our good French chef Denis, he never knows how many people is going to come down here and eat. But due to the technologies that are actually measuring how many people have actually been in the canteen, he can constantly monitor if he needs to produce more food or if he already has enough.
In ISS, we are strong believers in taking our own medicine. If we are recommending sensors and intuitive buildings to our customers, of course, we're going to take that medicine ourselves. For that reason, we've installed sensors throughout the corporate headquarters here in Copenhagen.
In just hours, an enormous amount of data is providing immediate insight and easily integrated to the IBM Sariga and C-Plex tools.
Now that the sensors are installed, it's very easy to connect them to the Watson IoT platform. We can collect the data and enrich them with other data sources like geographical map, 2D floor plans, 3D models, or even weather reports.
So the interesting aspect here is about ISS, which is the world's largest facility management company, using the platform on their own buildings first, being a bit of a living lab themselves, experimenting with us, rapid prototyping, creating agile processes and design thinking to developing new solutions, and then with us, bringing it to market. So we see many of our clients actually becoming partners and vice versa. And this is really what the focus is from our perspective at this point. We are helping our clients figure out what their business challenges are, map them into use cases to design thinking, and then map this into a cloud-based technology platform which supports an IoT strategy. We build that platform for them and with them. We then help solve issues by creating and carving out actionable insights and providing them in a flexible consumption model to our client as a service. And then we partner with some of them, as an example, in bring these offers to market and go into entire new operations and into new clients. So ISS, similar to Kone, going through a transition, which many of us in IBM start calling servitization. So it's about stopping selling the asset or the selling the traditional services and entering through a platform approach in an entire new market and monetize in ways other that the companies and the clients have been doing until the moment. Again, this is probably the most important point of this presentation. It is about an open innovation ecosystem where IBM is bringing together a number of its capabilities, which are very broad and deep, with a number of partners, traditional IT and infrastructure partners, but also with an ecosystem environment and a system program for startups through Bluemix, bringing basically all these parties together on this ecosystem approach. When we met first with Kone, we basically say nobody's holding their breath in IBM and Kone innovating in distribution world together. We're only going to be able to do it if we open up that platform and our strategy to any other parties that want to bring data, bring value, and jointly monetize that. In order to do this, we decided to take a very bold step and establish our global IoT headquarters, our Watson IT headquarters in Europe, in Munich, Germany. The office, which is a garage-style modern environment, is going to host about 3,000 people between IBM developers, consultants, but also clients and partners. So we're bringing together a number of people, quite a few investment, in order to be able to develop and roll out innovative IoT solutions to our world. And why Europe? For a couple of reasons. Europe is a very thriving living lab in many ways. Industrial companies, which is one of our major focuses, are very, very focused on Industry 4.0 transition and industrialization. So we see a very fertile ground here. We also see the public sector becoming a very strong player, and again, a living lab into this ecosystem. So on top of inviting you to come and visit us at the center in Munich and maybe establish yourself there and sit down and be part of this ecosystem, the other invitation is also to visit Barcelona at the 22 at district, which is in the city center, where the city has been basically creating an equivalent of this for smart cities called a living lab. So I'd like to end this presentation with the question that I always get, how do you get started? What are the critical success factors that we see clients focusing on in order to be successful? And if you look at Kone, ISS, Oli, the 2,500 clients that we surveyed, the successful part of those clients come back into three major characteristics. First of all, we see clients focusing on the experience, first of all. Adopting design thinking as their main methodology to figure out what the use cases and the value is, and then pairing that with cognitive learning. So redefining the user experience using cognitive and starting with that as your first point. Second, with we see those organizations opening up their infrastructure, their platform, and orchestrating as opposite to controlling. So partnership, partnership, partnership on the ecosystem side is very important. And the third point, and is probably the most difficult, is to align as they reinvent, which basically means two things. Develop the right skills that allow the company to transition from a product economy into a services economy. And these skills are usually, in my opinion, at the intersection between data science, design thinking, and enterprise architecture. So partnering, developing, training, and hire people in those three areas, to me, is one of the critical success factors and one of the biggest gaps, by the way, that we have today in this market. And second, and more importantly, and this is my final point, successful organizations are making IoT a very foundational part of their strategy. And again, they're shifting IoT from a technology, assets, sensor, device discussion into a value conversation that needs to be taken and adopted directly by the boardroom. Thank you.